Your life is meaningful. What? Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Dupree, scouring the globe to bring you stories of courage, passion, and resilience. If I could sum up this podcast into one word, I would use empathy. Now let's get inspired. Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I am your host, Brett Dupree, here to rock your world with inspiration, love, and joy. This is the 11th episode of the Joyous Expansion Podcast. It is only 4 weeks late. Wow. 4 weeks. 4 weeks. A lot has happened in these 4 weeks. I have definitely experienced overwhelm. It's actually been so long since I recorded a podcast, I forgot if I did more to start it than what I just did. I am at a loss, if you will. I got off the rails. If you heard my last podcast, I was celebrating my 40th birthday. I was excited about life, excited about turning 40. It was such a great day. My 40th birthday was amazing. The Lightworker Toastmasters threw me a birthday party, the Toastmaster Club, that I am starting. And yeah, it was a great time. And I was so pumped. And then all of a sudden, I just stopped getting people to interview. And none of the interviews I started working out. Then I saw I only had 3 left. And then all of a sudden, I started to feel bad about doing my podcast as I've been experiencing overwhelm. I feel like I have no time to do anything. Not only do I now give up my Thursday evenings and Tuesday evenings to Toastmasters, a wonderful organization that I am proud to be a part and has helped me so much, but giving up 2 nights in a row is taking a toll upon me. Also, my day job where I test software at a company is also have me working overtime. There's a lot of stress of getting this thing out. And I'm like, oh no, so much stress. How can I handle it? And to top it all off, the Tuesday Toastmaster Club is the Lightworker Toastmasters, a club that I am starting myself. I believe I've talked about it before. If I haven't, I am starting a Toastmaster Club because in July of 2020, the old program in Toastmaster ends, and I am 1 award away from becoming a distinguished Toastmaster, an award I never thought I would get. However, it makes sense because now I'm only 1 award away, plus the fact that I only have until 2020 to get it done. And you might say that's plenty of time, but one thing I need to do is take a year commitment in serving the district, which I am also doing right now as district public relations manager. And that also is a whole can of beans of things that I am doing for that, such as judging at contests, volunteering at contests. I was something called a chief judge twice. I had never been a chief judge before. I've always competed. And honestly, I do miss competing. And top of all of that, there's the play that I'm in, the Tribute Time Machine. It paid the first time, but not the second time, which just, for some reason, adds to the stress and makes it feel kind of, weak that I'm giving up a night of my life. I had to leave the Penny Arcade Expo early on a Saturday, which is one of my favorite things to do is the Penny Arcade Expo. I love it more than a fat kid loves cake, and this fat kid does love cake. So I've been looking at all those things that I've talked about, including this podcast, interviewing people, editing, all the things it takes to get this podcast up there. Not only do I talk for like 13 minutes, every minute of talking, of interviewing is at least 3 minutes of editing. That's just the way it works. Well, I mean, at least around is closer. For instance, you didn't hear me burp because I just edited that out, sucker. All those things happen. I did my old pattern, which was basically there are 2 main ways we deal with stress, because they call it the fight or flight system for a reason. And that's what stress is. Stress is your body feeling like it's being attacked. And it doesn't really matter if it's stress from a lion or stress from emotional or stress from work. Your body kind of reacts to it the same way. There are people who will go after it, they will fight, they'll get angry, or they will flee. Well, that's when you're triggered, because there's also, you can remain calm and zen and go to off the autonomic nervous system onto the sympathetic, I believe it's called. It's been a while since I've listened to Joe Dispenza's tapes. I believe it's the sympathetic nervous system. I'm probably wrong. I didn't put that to memory. But basically speaking, when you're in that point and you want to deal with things, you either go after it and fight, which can be bad. I mean, a lot of people do a good job. I mean, it's probably better for being successful to be a fighter than a flighter. But the people who are successful fighters, number one, they burn themselves out because they're constantly fighting. Number two, they can be jerks about it. So they burn bridges, they lose friends a lot. My ex-roommate was a fighter, and man, did she go through friends, because she burned herself out and burned their friendships out. And so when she hit stress, she would try to lay that on people and do her best. But you could see it would weigh on her and she would lose friends constantly. And I'm not saying I'm any better. I'm a flighter. Or freezer. I see them both primarily the same thing. Avoiding the issue. Binging on Netflix. And not to say that I can't fight, and not to say that a fighter can't fight, but it's more something that you're predisposed to doing, and I'm predisposed to flighting. I'm predisposed to avoidance. And I could see myself avoiding. It's almost like I have a certain amount of energy to deal with stuff. And I have read it with that. I mean, Steve Jobs says he wears the same clothes every day, so he doesn't have to make a decision. That eliminates one decision and increases his willpower, because every time you make a decision, you lower your willpower. And so it's almost like I have this certain amount of stuff I can deal with. And since I was dealing with work, and work has been stressful. It's also stressful because I'm a contractor, and I want this contract to go full time. So I feel extra stress about dealing with my higher ups and really wanting to make a good connection and doing all I can and feeling proud. And they always say stuff like, if you make a mistake, we don't look at it as the individual, but who actually believes a job actually does that? So taking on that stress. And then PRM, doing my best job as the PRM, which is going a little slower than I hoped. But then again, I had huge dreams, but I still have 10 more months to get them accomplished. I'm not doing bad by any means. I just put a lot of pressure on myself, which is part of the problem. I put a lot of pressure on myself. And so doing the job of the PRM and Lightworker Toastmasters, oh man. I was driving this girl named Belle home from the Lightworker Toastmasters yesterday. And I was talking. She asked me a few questions. But it's not all bad. Life hasn't been bad at all. It's just I've let some things slip because I feel like I don't have the energy to deal with them all. But I was talking to Belle about the Lightworker Toastmasters and how much those meetings drained me energetically, because especially the first 4 or 5 meetings was hard, really hard, because I had to be joyous. I had to be full on joyous expansion to a bunch of people most of the people showing up are afraid of what that is. Toastmasters is where we work on public speaking, and that's one of our biggest fears. So I had to hold that space. And especially during the first 5 meetings, when even the people I invited in who I did know could only hold so much space as well. Thus, I had to hold that container for all those nervous people. And I think I did a good job. I mean, I'm very proud. At 10 meetings, we got our 20 members that we needed, and we're ready to charter, become a real club. And yeah, I'm excited. That's amazing. I'm pumped about that. I am so very excited about that. But those first 5 weeks was hard. And I didn't do a good job of taking care of myself. I meditated, but I need to do more. One of my friends is doing a journaling class. And if I had oh yeah, that's another thing. My taxes. The hand thing means my taxes. I still have to pay like $500 to the IRS. I got an extension until October, but that's still weighing on my mind. And one of the bad parts about that is the 3 areas that I let go were, number 1, my business, obviously. I mean, you didn't say any podcast for 4 weeks, and that's all I've been doing is podcasting. I haven't been writing my daily email. I haven't been doing any advertising. I haven't been doing anything with my business. Nothing. And then the 2 other things that I generally let go, which is eating healthy. Back in start of the summer, I was starting getting into pretty decent shape. I was walking and timing my walks and doing push-ups every day. And then I stopped. And yeah, I just stopped. Now I feel fat and out of shape again, which also reduces my energy. But also the other thing I do is I spend money dumbly because I don't want to look at my budget. And make me not looking at my budget makes me spend more. And that's just a terrible habit to get into. And I know that I'm 40 and I still have that habit. I've had that habit since I've had money in 20 years. It's time to stop. It's time to stop. I feel like a mess sometimes, you know? Like a big, giant mess. Someone who has nothing going for him. Like, that's how I feel sometimes. That, honestly, I'm a 40-year-old loser. I'm barely making it. I barely have enough money to live, even though I have a decent paying job. I'm still wavering too closer to 400 pounds than 300 pounds, and no one really wants to be 300 pounds unless you're a defensive lineman in the NFL. I'm alone. I don't have any relationships, and I don't feel like there's no, just gonna even handle one if I got into it. And then I have Toastmasters to deal with, which I love. Don't get me wrong. But starting a club and doing a club on Thursdays and also the advanced club, that takes stuff out of me. And I don't feel like I'm doing my best. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this coaching thing with Andy Dooley as Daily Activation Club, and I totally dropped the ball. They had some technical issues, and that made me break my habit, and I haven't been able to build the habit back up. I don't blame them at all. They've been doing a great job of getting everything situated. But yeah, honestly, yeah, I haven't been doing that like I promised him I would. I feel like I've let him down. I feel like I've let a lot of people down, to be honest. Most of my family, they always talk about me like I'm something. Or Susan McKay, this amazing coach, who at one point said that of all the people she's ever taught in her class, I was her favorite. And all the people who said they see something in me, I always feel like I let them down. But the worst thing of all, I always feel like I let myself down. I have dreams. I have aspirations. I really love talking to people. I really love speaking. I really love coaching. But how much do I actually love it, I wonder about that sometimes. I wonder about that sometimes because dealing with all that stress is hard for me. And when you listen to stuff of the law of attraction and all those things, there's so you're living your life's purpose. Everything is easy. It's in flow. I believe I even wrote that in my book. And sometimes it just doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it doesn't feel flow. Sometimes I know I love it. I know I'm making the world a better place. I know I'm following my path, my life purpose, but I don't feel that flow. And it's hard not to think that there's something wrong with me. If, am I bipolar? Am I manic depressive? Am I just a big, fat, stupid loser who people say great things about, but honestly, you don't deserve any of that praise? Yeah, I told you my mind goes negative. It's what it does. I was noticing that while editing this interview that's coming up. It was how I was editing it. When I was editing it last Friday I forgot the date. I don't have much free time anymore, it feels. But I do have plenty of time to watch the anime I want to watch. Anyway, I noticed it was feeling heavy because I was looking at how much time I have left to go and how long it was taking and how many Ashley was making. And it's like, oh, each one of those just will make this take longer. And I'm like, oh, why won't this end? And it's just feeling heavy and heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. I stopped myself and I noticed my thoughts. And I noticed the feelings that were coming from those thoughts. Another burp you won't have to listen to thanks to the power of editing. And I noticed how I was the one who was making this difficult. Editing is kind of fun. In fact, it is fun, especially now that I'm kind of good at it. I edit pretty fast. I use a gaming mouse. I have it down. It's almost automatic, and it's pretty fun. So once I started noticing how much fun I was having editing, all of a sudden, how much time left didn't matter. All of a sudden, it was easy. Her ums and ahs and you knows and verbal crutches that Toastmasters has trained me to hate with an iron fist. That didn't make sense. Maybe because Iron Fist is a bad TV show, but I haven't watched it because everyone said it's a bad TV show. They didn't bother me. They're just a part of, I'm going to serve by making her sound the best that she possibly can and be proud when she listens to that interview by how amazing she is and how great her message is. Because her message is great. I just finished editing it right now. Even though right now I'm going to edit this part. And then, you know what? I sound great. Because I am. So yeah. So in that moment, I noticed my thoughts. And of course, that saying is how you do anything is how you do everything. Looking at my thoughts, I got to get this handled. I mean, I am Joyous Expansion, father. I am Brett Dupree, the catalyst of transformation. And I know what to do. And that's just changing my mindset and developing the ultimate mindset. It's all you need. I can't guarantee success. There's no guarantee of success. I don't believe that. I don't believe if you work hard and you have the right mindset and you do everything in the book that you're guaranteed success. That's not how life works. You might do that, then all of a sudden get cancer and become homeless. Or you might just be 60, still going for it, and nothing happening. Both of those are possible. But at the same time, the saying, you make your own luck, is because the more you do go for it, you increase the probability that you are successful. You increase the chances of creating that funnel that sells 6 figures, of writing that book that hits the zeitgeist, to creating that marketing message that starts getting you clients. And that's what the ultimate mindset does, is increases your probability of making it, increases your probability of living the life of your dreams. And I think that's the value of personal development, is it doesn't make you happy and successful. It just increases your chances of being happy and successful. And if you can go from 100 to 1 in 60 to 1 in 30 to 1 in 20, I think that's worth it. So time to introduce you to Ashley Morgan. What a great interview that was. Ashley Morgan is a life and leadership coach for mid-career female leaders who love getting results. After more than 13 years in management, Ashley Morgan was feeling like a fraud. She was overworked, overwhelmed, and disconnected. It all came to a head one Christmas season, which should be the most happy time, but she was extremely unhappy. And she decided to finally say yes to life. And it was worth it. She knows that is not unique. She has changed her life around and is able to do the same for you. In fact, she's been able to create a life filled with joy, adventure, meaning, connection, travel, and so much more, all without even giving up her career. She is still leading director level in a Fortune 500 company, currently ranked number 1 in her company. As a result of this work, she created a duplicable system to help other women do the same. When she started her journey, she did not have a model or a coach or someone telling her what to do. But now she knows that she is here to support people like you. If you are a mid-career female leader who is tired, Ashley Morgan is the person to talk to. Now here is my interview with the great Ashley Morgan. Hello, Ashley, and welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
It says on your bio that you are a life and leadership coach. How did you get into that?
Kind of an interesting journey. I have been for nearly the last 15 years in corporate America in a variety of different leadership and management positions across the span of my career. Always ended up taking positions where coaching, mentoring, developing people was always a big part of that, particularly in performance-based settings, sales, things like that. Pretty early on, I knew that I loved coaching, but I didn't have a model for what that could look like full time or just, really truly making a business out of that. And so I stayed, in pursuing the corporate climb, so to speak, and have built for myself a successful career. But most recently, just fell back in love with the idea of pursuing coaching as its own thing, because it's something that you get kind of an itch and you feel called to do it. and it doesn't leave you. And so I went through an experience last year where I lost my dad. He was just a really big part of my life. Going through that process was really difficult. But during that time, one of the things that it made me ask myself really is just, am I doing everything in life that I want? Am I playing this game of life full out and really giving my guts? And I knew just when I was being honest that I wasn't, because there was this kind of dream that I had to support people in a different way. I wanted to take the experiences that I'd had as a leader and manager and support more people than just what I was doing in corporate America. And so as a result, decided to launch my coaching practice.
So you're spending 15 years into corporate America and you had this dream. What were some of the thoughts holding you back from going for it?
Oh gosh, that is probably a long list. I think one of the biggest ones that comes up is just fear of public opinion. So just being afraid, right, of what people might think. Who are you to offer people advice? Who are you to give people suggestions on how to live their life? You don't have a perfect life. So I definitely think the fear of public opinion made it hard to want to launch out on my own. Also, again, I think not really having a model for what that would look like to do it alongside my full-time corporate job. I didn't know, how would I take clients? How would I differentiate between my day job, and how would I just make the time for it in a very busy life already between family and work? So, I think there were a variety of different fears and worries whether or not this was a good decision to make. I think for years that's one of those things are what held me back from taking action.
That reminds me of a story I heard from Wayne Dyer, how he talks about how it doesn't make sense to really worry about what people think of you because you have no control over it. That when he goes up into a room and speaks in front of 1,000 people, he leaves that room with 1,000 different reputations.
Oh, wow. I've not heard that story. I'm a big fan of Wayne Dyer. And yeah, it's absolutely true. I read something recently that said, really, your job is to support maybe 20% of the people listening to your message. You'll probably alienate the other 80% because your message is just never really going to agree with everyone. There's always going to be something or someone that disapproves. But I think it was for me kind of I don't know, I guess the big key to breaking through that was just facing just mortality. My dad was only 68. He was really young, and it was really unexpected, him going into the hospital and then within 6 months, not being with us anymore. And so it just was a really stark reality for me that life is short. If I feel called to do something, I should go after it and pursue it. He was one of those people who at 68 could look back on his life and feel grateful for how he served. He did a lot of just good work in the world. And so even though, he wanted more time with his family, he could be really pleased with what he did. I knew for myself that I ever got to his point in life, I wanted to be able to look back on my life and say, I did all the things that mattered. Thinking about life in those terms gave me just the courage to step out and to do the thing that was scary.
So thinking back on your career in corporate America, was there a time that you just felt that itch of, oh man, I really like this coaching thing?
Absolutely. I think 2 years in, I can recall really specifically coming out of a meeting with the team member and thinking, man, I love 20% of my job. Wildly crazy, love this piece of the job, but it's only 20%. The other 80% is managing process, operations, sales, driving numbers, getting results. They're absolutely, it was just there was a big gap for me. I was spending most of my time doing something that I generally liked and was good at, but it wasn't the thing that set my soul on fire. I didn't leave energized having done all those other things, but after leaving some sort of coaching conversation or, development plan, creating a development plan with someone, or even being coached by, great leadership, I knew, man, I love this. This is something I really, really enjoy.
What is it about coaching that set your life on fire?
I think that more than anything, it's about hope. For myself, when I think about the most difficult times in my life, just the feeling that I get to be on the other side of this eventually. Maybe I don't have the map or the blueprint right now, but I can move to the other side. Like, it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be this hard always, perpetually. And so what I love about coaching is that it's really about helping someone, holding the space for someone to bridge the gap between their current reality and where they're at and their ideal reality, where they desire to be, what they want to create. So if you can help them really get from island A, where they are, to island B, where they want to be, you've really done your job as a coach to help support them through that process. The hope aspect, I think it gives people hope that they can actually change their lives and make a difference.
Was there a time in your life when somebody gave you hope when you felt like you didn't have it?
Gosh, that is a good question. I definitely can think of one specific example, and it was when I had kind of an untraditional career path in corporate America, getting through corporate America per se. When I originally started out just in the work world, I did running start in high school. Right after high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do in terms of a 4-year degree, and so ended up going to work. My parents said, okay, you don't have to finish school right away, but you do have to work. And so that's how I ended up getting into retail management, and then ultimately banking, and now what I do in terms of staffing in my day job. What I ended up doing is leaving banking and taking on an 18-month sabbatical, and then after that I went back to school. But eventually your pocketbook tells you that you need to pay your bills, and so I ended up going back to work, but taking just a pretty entry level, low end position, and I was doing night audits for a hotel, and I was working 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I would get off of work at 7 a.m. and depending on the day of the week, my first scheduled class might be at either 7:45 or 8 a.m. I can remember, doing that. I did that for almost 2 years, and I can remember one of the clients that I was checking in one night at the hotel. It was right in the middle of finals. I was working on an honors thesis, and it was a 40-page qualitative research paper. It was really in the trenches of the finals and overwhelm of just trying to get this paper finished and working full time and going to school full time. One of my clients just looked at me, and this, in hotels, especially when you work the night shift, you have regular business clients that come in usually Sunday or Monday nights, and you get to know them and build relationships with them. And I can remember one of my clients, Lori, looking across the counter at me and just telling me, Ashley, I know it's so hard right now. Trust me, it's going to be so worth it when you finish. It seemed in the moment such a small thing, but knowing, that she was a corporate executive she had worked through her undergrad, she'd worked through her getting her MBA, and she was now doing a job that she really enjoyed, had more travel than she liked, but really loved the work that she was doing. And so I held on to that. I thought, oh gosh, if I could just have that job and a career that I love, then I know that it will be worth it. And to hear someone say it's possible for you, it was small in the moment, but it was absolutely something that gave me hope.
Wow, that's really cool. It's amazing how just a small act of kindness from someone can really go a long way.
It's so true. And I'm sure she probably wouldn't even remember that conversation, but it's one of those things that sticks with me because it does. Just like you said, it reminds me that the smallest kind word, the smallest, sharing of your story, the smallest, you just don't know something, what it might do to help someone or support someone or just help them change their life.
Yeah, that's the basic idea of this podcast, is to hear people's stories of doing that and hopefully change a few lives.
Well, I feel privileged to be a part of it and to be sharing my story with you today.
So, of your trials and tribulations of running your business, that was a weird way to start that sentence, because my question is, what are they?
Good question. Well, I will say this. The coaching practice has launched, I think, a bit more smoothly. This wasn't my first entrepreneurial venture. While I was going to school and working full time, I ended up becoming a part of a direct sales company. And it was a company that I really loved, I really believed in, and still use the product today, even though I'm not a part of the organization. I could see the hope and I could see the financial freedom, and I could see the opportunity to create a life on your terms. And I pursued it. I think my sister was doing it at the time, and she's still a part of the organization. I did that. And despite having nearly, I think, 9 or 10 years of experience in sales, leading and managing people and building a team and all of that, I was so afraid to put myself out there and say, hey, this is my new venture. This is my brand. This is what I'm doing. And so I can't really even say that it crashed or burned because it never really got started. I sold a few things here and there. I went to a lot of events and a lot of meetings, and I think more than anything, got a great community of friends from being a part of it. So it was, and learned a lot about myself. It was a great experience. The biggest lesson I took away from that was just, fears can be crippling. Right? It can especially that fear of getting visible and sharing your message and sharing why you're doing something with the world around you, because there's so much judgment, I think, in our culture. When you're afraid that you might experience that and you're so caught up in the being afraid, it can be hard to put yourself out there. And even in this coaching business, in the beginning, I experienced so much of that, just that fear of sharing my message. Will it resonate with people? Still that concern about, are you qualified to do this? The biggest obstacle has really been just overcoming a variety of different fears, wondering, will anyone support me? What will my family think? Not really knowing the process, right? Because anytime you're starting a business, you are absolutely learning as you go. And so not really knowing how to do everything and just trying to hold faith that everything is going to work out and you're going to learn everything that you need to know throughout the journey. But I think the biggest fear for me that I've had to overcome is just getting visible, sharing my message. How I've been able to, I feel like, overcome that is just by focusing on the people who I want to serve and the messaging that I have for them and my story and my experience as someone who was a corporate kind of climber and realized that I had climbed ladders of success, but not really been truly happy or joyful, didn't have a true sense of meaning and purpose in my life. So having been there and then being on the other side, wanting to share how I got there with people and making that message the most important has what's helped me to have the courage to just continue to get out there, even when I'm not sure if what I'm saying is landing or resonating with people, because I know ultimately if you stay out front long enough and keep sharing your message with passion and with courage, you'll find your tribe.
That's an interesting part. You started off trying to sell someone else's product, but you ended up selling yourself. One thing I noticed from life coaching / as an author who wrote a book about myself and all the things I've learned, it is extremely vulnerable. You're putting your entire self out there and saying, look at me, and hopefully this can help you. But it's just this extreme vulnerability to sell yourself, your ideas, your thoughts, and your ability to help improve other people's lives.
You are so right. It's a very vulnerable place because you have absolutely you have no guarantee, even when you put yourself out there in all of your honesty, sharing some of the most difficult things that you could share, how people will respond. It's a very vulnerable place to be in and, scary at times. But ultimately, by focusing on the message, I've found it to be just really worth it.
So what is your message?
I support primarily that mid-career female leader because that's who I've been in creating a life that's filled with more joy, more delight, more of a sense of purpose. And the reason that's important to me is because, like I said, I have been really overworked, really overwhelmed by the pace of leadership, the workload and the hours and all of that. And on the outside looked really successful, looked like I had it all together. But on the inside, I was kind of slowly dying inside. I didn't have what I wanted in my life overall. Just got to kind of a really low point in my life, actually during a holiday season one year, and said, this is not how I want to live my life. Looking like I have it all together on the outside, only to be feeling really on the inside, I'm failing. I look to serve that high achieving woman who has had a lot of success on the outside and realize that she needs to reconnect to her core desires, her core feelings, and ultimately just not settle. Life really is too short to do anything less than what excites you and what lights you you up. My goal is to help women rediscover what that is, find their voice, and get comfortable articulating that, and then go out and live that in the world. And what I found in my experience is that when you do that, when you do take care of yourself, pursue things that you are passionate about, it ultimately makes you a better leader. And so when I am a happier, more joy-filled leader, when I have more of a sense of meaning and purpose in my life, I'm able to take that back to my team and support the people that I work with, support them better, essentially.
So you came up with this desire to really go for it over a holiday?
I did. I love Christmas. It's one of my favorite holidays. And I went through a holiday season a few years ago where I got to the end of that holiday season and realized, I don't love my life. I don't love my life. And so it was interesting because I kind of randomly made a post on Facebook and said, I'm going to make 2016 ridiculously amazing. I had no real idea about how I was going to do that, but knew that that's what I really desired. And so enter Shonda Rhimes' book, Year of Yes. It popped up in my newsfeed, and she's someone that I really admire and respect and watch her shows and just love how she engages with the world and shares her opinions freely. Ended up wanting to pick up her book, listened to Year of Yes probably within a day and a half. This is it. This is what I need to start doing to reconnect with my core desires and just figure out, like, what do I even like? What do I want? What am I trying to create? And the premise of Year of Yes really is about saying yes to the things that scare you, yes to the things that excite you, and really just saying yes to yourself. And so she, throughout the course of this book, shares about how she basically went through a year where she said yes to every opportunity that came her way, which was really uncommon for her because she was used to saying no a lot and having a lot of excuses for why she couldn't do certain things. I began kind of my own personal year of yes. And that's really how I was able to transition from that very overworked kind of corporate executive to someone who could really say that they were connected to their family and to their friends and had a sense of meaning and was cultivating gratitude and was cultivating joy and was really living that out. I was able to just do more things in that year after having set that intention than I had done probably the 3 years prior in terms of connecting with people and trying new things and traveling, just reading more books for fun and just experiencing life. And so going through that journey, I knew, okay, if I've been there and I could get to the other side, I can support other women in doing the same.
During that year of yes, what was your scariest yes?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. My scariest yes. I think accepting a public speaking engagement. It was something I had to do for work. And even though I've been in leadership and management a long time, I don't feel like some things just aren't your thing. And public speaking has just never been something that I felt really confident doing. But, it was kind of one of those scenarios where it was voluntold. And so my boss said, hey, I need you to do this thing. And I did it. It was really scary. And so just, getting up there, putting yourself out there again, it's that being visible, right? It's that vulnerability of getting up in front of an audience that basically are strangers to you and sharing some sort of message or some sort of truth and trying to connect with people in a way that's meaningful and so that you'll be remembered. And then I'm a major introvert, so it's not easy to be in a big room full of people. So doing that was pretty scary.
Yeah, public speaking is known as one of our biggest fears as people. All those people looking at you, and yeah, I've been there.
Well, it's good to know that I'm not alone. And I do feel like it's common, where people just experience some sort of concern about it. It's a bit more comfortable now. Even still, I mean, I don't consider myself to be incredibly outgoing. There's things that I'm good at as a result of my kind of career path, but I'm very much kind of a homebody. So even in terms of sharing my message, about coaching and the women that I support and why and all of that, even that takes kind of digging deep and taking courageous action because I believe in the message so much, but it's still just scary. But it doesn't matter. You have to make the decision that whatever outcome that you're trying to pursue is more important than the fear. Throughout my entrepreneurial journey so far, that's been one of my biggest learnings is that the fear, the little whispers of worry and what will happen if those, I haven't found that they go away. Sometimes they get a little bit quieter, but ultimately it really is your decision pursue kind of in spite of the worry or the fear that makes all the difference.
Wow, I didn't expect you to say you're an introvert because you seem so forward.
It's so funny that you say that. My mom and I were actually just discussing that last night on the car ride to dinner. Most people are really surprised to find out that I'm an introvert, but I am a major introvert. And, just because of my careers, I've spent a lot of years in sales and customer service and currently manage in my corporate job that I still have, manage a book of direct sales clients that I work with, and then also lead a team of managers as well. So, just all of my roles have really forced me to get more comfortable being outgoing. But, if I could kind of retreat inward, or even just when I think about the things that recharge me and rejuvenate me, it really is being with a smaller circle of people and being a bit more reserved. That is one of those things that you've got to work through something like that seems kind of like an obstacle in order to serve people.
What's it like marketing as an introvert?
Oh, good question. I think, like you put it earlier, it's just about being vulnerable and trying to connect with people as people. My strategy in marketing, in both business to business sales, and then also in connecting with people about, my coaching offerings, it's really about identifying with the person sitting across from you. Because once you're able to do that, it gets easier to connect with them and to share whatever information it is that you have to share with them. You can't really control what they will say or what they will think. All you can do is kind of manage through your delivery. And so I try to focus on that, but it takes a lot of just doing it. Back in 2017, early 2017, actually, I read Mel Robbins' book, The 5 Second Rule, which is all about taking courageous action and doing it in a matter of 5 seconds. And if you haven't read the book, it's a great book. It's one of my favorites. But she goes into a lot of the scientific research. And, I'm kind of a researcher at heart. She's got a very similar process she uses a lot of like qualitative research where she has studied people and then also leverages, other scientific research to explain what happens in our brain when we go through the process of making a decision quickly and taking some sort of immediate action. So all last year, especially in sales, I do cold calls and, connect with people who are basically strangers, which can be intimidating at times, but it's just a matter of just taking the action and doing it too quickly for your brain to catch up with the fact that it's scary, and then, the more often you do it, the easier it does get. And then the more you're able to focus on the other person sitting across from you and not the story that you're telling yourself in your head, the easier the process gets for you.
So do you have a favorite story of a success with you? Man, that didn't come out as well as I hoped. Do you have a success story from one of your favorite clients that you'd like to share? You can change their names or something to keep it private.
Oh, sure. Let's see. I can think of a person really recently that I was supporting. She was just under 2 years into her leadership journey. She had taken on a new position as a manager a few years ago and had moved into a different part of the state. She moved. And so I was just talking with her about some of the challenges that she was experiencing with her team. It's interesting. You'll find that a lot of the times, especially with leaders, you get into conversations with them and they very quickly, they want to get into the nuts and bolts of the business. They want to really get into the numbers and the how and the strategy. And more often than not, I find it's really more the personal work, the intangibles that you have to focus on in order to really impact kind of that outer world. And so, I connected with her, talked with her just through the challenges that she was having. And it turned out that she was really needing to make it a different career move. And I think was really waiting for someone to give her the permission to do that. And so as a result of us going through the coaching dialogue, she was able to realize that perhaps leadership isn't what she wanted right now. Like it was still something she felt called to overall, but right now in her life, she wanted to be able to take a step back, pursue some other projects and pursue some other things and just make some other things more important. So the reason why I love that story is because a lot of times when you are in corporate America, especially, and you are moving up the career path, people look at you and they think, wow, this is so exciting for you. This is so great. You're making such progress. And so it can feel like you're moving backwards if you decide to step down from a leadership role. But through the work together, she was able to realize that her core desire at this time wasn't to actually be leading and managing. She really needed to focus on some other things in her life, and taking a step back from leadership was going to empower her to do that. Leaving that conversation, she felt confident in being able to go ahead and make that choice and make that decision and feel good about it.
Yeah, that's very powerful. Sometimes in life we want to go, 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 but there are a lot of times where it's a good idea just to step back and work on ourselves more so we don't end up getting Peter principled, if you will.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so hard sometimes because I think in society, we really celebrate overwork and overwhelm and the hustle and the grind. You know, we wear all of those things like a badge of honor. We celebrate those things in our society, but it's impossible to keep up that pace all the time. Eventually, it catches up with you. And if you don't take care of yourself, and if you're so disconnected from self that you can't hear the whispers when they're whispers, eventually they get louder and they get louder. And a lot of times we see that as humans show up in our relationships and show up in our physical bodies and show up in just mental stresses and anxieties. So you do. Sometimes you do, in order to propel forward and to make more quantum leaps, you do need to take a step back, prioritize some self-care. And more than anything, I think it's staying in alignment with what your core desires are. Like, what do you actually want? Not like what is the right thing, not what should you do, but what do you actually desire? And so connecting with that makes it easier, I think, to then go out and take that really courageous action and start creating more of what you want in your life.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, we are coming to the end of our time together, an interview. And one thing I love for my interviewees to do is give a 1 minute of motivation, where you can condense your message down to 1 minute, or think of it as you have a time machine and you're going back to your 8-year-old self and you only have 1 minute to give yourself the pep talk you need.
Okay. I would say life is too short to do anything less than what completely lights you up. The world is a really big and expansive place, and your life should be lived that way. It should be lived in a big and expansive way. I believe that every single person has a blueprint of their most joy filled, happy, meaningful life written on their heart. So, follow your heart's desires. They are meant for you. Don't settle for an average life when an exceptional one is available for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time to spend on my podcast. I enjoyed your story of what it's like to, well, be a closeted introvert and to be able to go out there and push yourself to serve others, give other people hope. And your, I guess, struggle with vulnerability is one that I think will resonate with a lot of people, as well as you are. I mean, not so much struggle, but as in, oh my gosh, I have to be vulnerable. And then still doing it, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, if you will. So I thank you so much for being on my podcast. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you gave me the opportunity to share. Wishing you all the best in your continued interviews.
Awesome. I wish you all the best, because I'm sure you'll have another in the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And
that was Ashley Morgan. What an interview that was. I very much enjoyed talking to her. It's always fun talking to people, especially people you don't really know. I met her through a friend of mine. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool to talk to someone and learn about their story. And, that's the point of this podcast, to learn about people's stories. One thing, a little inside baseball, if you are thinking about getting a life coach or life coaching period, there's almost no better feeling than hearing someone say, that's a good question. So I honestly can say that a few times during this interview, I felt pretty good about myself because I got her to ask that. In fact, one thing I have noticed going over these interviews the way I have, and I've gotten better. I can see that skill going up in the types of questions I ask and the way I'm doing this. I'm getting better and better at this. I guess that's what happens when you practice deliberately. Listening to her interview made me think about certain things. Like, for instance, I really need to listen to the 5-second rule. I keep on seeing advertisements for Mel Robbins, because I'm like Tony Robbins' wife in my brain. Even though I know they're probably not married, because I assume that would come up somewhere. However, I'm just saying the name Robbins always makes me think of personal development. Maybe I should change my last name to Robbins. Maybe then I'll be more successful. Anyway, I enjoyed hearing her story of somebody who went for it. Somebody who was living a certain way that was fine, but wasn't their heart's content. It wasn't their dreams. It wasn't their desires. I know I ask mostly life coaches and people with businesses on this podcast because, honestly speaking, those are the type of people who want to go on podcasts. But at the same time, it's still fun to listen to somebody, even if you're not into that, who saw something in themselves that was more than what they are. Saw the life they were living and realized that they can do more. And Ashley stepped up and did more. And is doing more. There's no need for past tense there. Ashley is doing more. And of course, that always gets me thinking about myself because that's what these podcasts are about. Just a whole bunch of me thinking about me. And one thing that I have been doing is saying yes to more opportunities, trying to figure it out. That's why I'm in the play, but the last one is on Friday, even though I don't honestly want to be in it anymore. Didn't want to be in it in the first place. But I decided to say yes to the opportunity. You know, it's been fun. It's been fun. It's been fun. Tribute time machine. Just giving up a Friday. This time. Driving directly to work. That's my frustrated sound. Anyway, listening to Ashley's interview a third time, I enjoyed that aspect of it. The saying yes to adventure, being more adventurous. One thing I've been working on is letting go of that voice that keeps on telling me no and to stop doing it. Because honestly speaking, I can't think of very many times in my life where listening to that voice has paid off. It's generally been something I regretted. Generally. If listening to Ashley Morgan got you excited about learning more about her, you can find her on her website at ashleymorgan.live. That's ASHLEYMORGAN.LIVE. ashleymorgan.live. On that, she has a cool PDF called 4 Steps to More Life Clarity. Ooh, isn't that something we all can use? Are you feeling stuck, unclear from what you want in life, and unsure how to move forward? If so, that guide is for you. In 4 simple steps, you'll gain the clarity and direction you've been seeking. I suggest you go there and check it out and see if Ashley is right for you to get you to where you want to go. Well, this has been the 11th episode of the Joyous Expansion Podcast. Just over a month late. That's life, isn't it? I guess people who found this not in the month wouldn't know unless I mentioned it. So for you who just discovered this is the first podcast you listen to, it's right on time. I'm once again your host, Brett Dupree, the champion of authentic joy, the catalyst of transformation, the person who loves to give himself taglines. More taglines, the better. You can find me at www.joyousexpansion.com. If you typed it in and giggle because you see sex in the middle, you know you typed it right. I know someone else pointed that out to me, that you can see sex in Joyous Expansion, and the truth of the matter is, I did not notice until I created the URL. But then I thought to myself, Joyous is not a word, and neither is pansion. So Joyous, sex, pansion isn't going to do anything. Plus, sex is fun. Sex is good. Sex is natural. Ah, man, I totally messed up the George Michael lyrics. So associating joyous expansion with something that makes people happy, I'm down for. Good consensual sex, of course. If you have any questions for me that I would love to answer on my podcast, you could be also one of the first people to ask me a question based on my podcast. You can send an email to me at brettdupree@joyousexpansion.com. That's BRE 2 T's, DUPR 2 E's at joyousexpansion.com. And also at joyousexpansion.com, I have a fun little download a PDF of my own that I would love to share with you. Developing the ultimate mindset, because I recognize how to do it. And it's fun. It is so much fun. Oh, you can find this podcast, subscribe to it wherever podcasts are found. If you don't find it, email me and I'll put it there. Or you can just go to pod.joyousexpansion.com and check out my affiliate link for a cutie schedule, something that's made this podcast really easy to schedule. As somebody who hates dotting the I's and crossing the T's, a cutie scheduling makes scheduling easy for someone like me who is not attention detailed. I'm a big picture person, which is funny because in my normal life, as I like to call it, my muggle world job, I am a software tester, and it's nothing but little details. Well, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate you for who you are. I love you for who you are. You are an amazing human being, and I remind you once again to be loved, to be joy, to be awesome. Now play my jingle.
JoyousExpansion.com JoyousExpansion.com. Come and say hello to Brett Dupree. He is an inspirational life coach, good for you and good for me. He turned my life from grey to blue, I'm sure he'll do the same for you. Get in touch and you'll see your life will change dramatically. JoyousExpansion.com JoyousExpansion.com. Yeah.